Hey everybody. Hey all my friends at the Women's Alzheimer's Movement here at WHAM Live. I'm so glad. I hope some of you were just over on my page. I just did a little kind of talk about why we were going to be doing our conversation over here on WHAM today and not over on Maria Shriver's account. Thursdays are WHAM days, WHAM Live, conversations about what you need to know right now about your brain health, about your body, about how to protect yourself, about prevention. It's a chance for you to ask questions. That's the purpose of WHAM. The WHAM stands for the Women's Alzheimer's Movement. And this is an organization that was started to understand why 2/3 of the brains that are diagnosed with Alzheimer's belong to women. No one knows why that is. And so we were formed to try to understand why that is, why 2/3 of all the brains diagnosed with Alzheimer's belong to women. And women of color, AfricanAmerican women and Latino women are even more vulnerable. So WHAM is out there funding research into women's brains. We're educating women and their families. We're working with elected officials to make life easier and to bring services to families on the ground already dealing with this really challenging disease. So I hope if you don't know about the work of the Women's Alzheimer's Movement, I hope you will join us. I hope you will check us out. I hope you will think about your own brain health. It's our greatest our greatest natural resource, our greatest asset is our brain. And that's what the Women's Alzheimer's Movement is also here to do, is to remind you to think about your brain, to care for your brain, to love your brain, to nourish it and nurture it, and to keep it in shape, right? To keep it in shape. We have a really big scientific advisory board. We have people all across the world that work with us on the ground, and we're always looking for more people who can help us in every way possible, because our work is round the clock. It's 7 days a week. It knows no end. And so any of you who want to join us, please do. And today we wanted to talk to one of the members of our scientific advisory board. I think we have about 70 or 80 incredible doctors, researchers, and individuals on the scientific advisory board of the Women's Alzheimer's Movement. And today we're going to be talking with Dr. Cozzette Lyons-Jones, and she is the Chief of Adult Medicine at the Watts Healthcare Clinic. And we thought it would be really helpful to speak with Dr. Jones for a variety of reasons, but also she is really in the heart of this city. She is dealing with people who are dealing with COVID. She is dealing with people who have pre-existing conditions. She is dealing with a community that is disproportionately impacted by Alzheimer's. And so she has been in the thick of it. And also she could bring us up to date with what she's seeing, what she's learning, what we should know, maybe even how we can help. And I think these conversations are always designed to be informative, to be inspiring, to be motivating, and hopefully also will be conversations where people can help. So I'm going to hopefully, Dr. Jones is going to join us from some account. I'm not sure if the account she's joining us is the Watts Healthcare Clinic or whether she's joining us from her own account. Once again, we want to remember that she has been and is on the front lines, you know, kind of her whole life, but in particular during this entire COVID pandemic. There she is, Dr. Cozzette. No, she's not there. Okay, I'm looking for her account. I'm looking see if she's let's do this double crochet. Yeah, good for her. I agree. Let's wave. And so hopefully Dr. Cozzette will request to be interviewed. I don't see her. I see somebody saying she's here, but I don't see her. Okay, I don't see her in my request. Maybe Dr. Jones, if you could request, I see a lot of other wonderful people here. I see a lot of other wonderful people who have joined us here. Oh, there she said, I'm trying to connect. So you have to request, Dr. Cozzette, if you could request to come on. I know she says, I'm here, I'm trying to connect. We have so many people. It's interesting. We're patient, don't worry. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm patient too. She's here trying to connect. I see that. But since I'm not with her, I can't help her. Only thing I can tell you, Doctor, oh, maybe that's you there now. There she goes. She's sent a request. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Dr. Cozzette, are you there? Come. Connecting. There you are.
Hey, love. How are you?
Oh, good. Oh, that's so nice. Thank you calling me love. That's so nice. I love that. I love when someone calls me love. Gosh. I think we have a little bit of a challenging hookup there.
Yes.
Yes. Can you maybe you're probably where you are is not probably great internet. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
I'm in the Watts area. That's where my clinic is located. Yeah. So we're always connectivity challenged. We did well last night on the dry run, but I'm not sure what's going on today.
Well, that's okay. That's all right. That's okay. Your challenge is our opportunity. It's totally fine. Don't worry about it. So let me begin. You said you're down in West, Doctor. How are you doing down there?
We're doing fine. Like everywhere, healthcare delivery has changed tremendously as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. We've gone from face-to-face to televisits, and we've had to be more we talk about the triple aim, where we're looking at it from the perspective of the patient and patient satisfaction and making sure the quality of care that's delivered to a patient and how we deliver that care and access and all that. But the plus one of that triple aim is to think about the employees. So right now we have to think about environmental safety from the perspective of both our patients as well as our staff. And that has been a challenge in terms of making the clinic safe for everyone to enter in who needs to access the building still. So that's the situation across the country though.
Right, exactly. When you say we're doing okay, kind of, I would push back. How are you doing personally, really? You're working really round the clock, right? You're seeing people, whether it's through telemedicine or you're seeing people who struggle to get to see you, who are scared, who might have a lot of pre-existing conditions. How are you doing with all of this? It's a weight. It's a lot of stress, I imagine.
It is a significant amount of stress. For me, I'm a unique creature. I thrive in these kinds of environments. I have a history of volunteering to go into these type of environments when I would go on medical missions abroad. So like after the earthquake in Haiti, I was there on the ground to help deliver care to the Haitians back. So for me, I actually am thriving in this, but it is stressful. It's a moving target. Every day there's new information as we learn more about this creature. And it changes guidances in terms of how we approach our management of patients. Who we even decide to test can change from day to day, depending on the guidance that's sent out by the CDC and your local Department of Public Health. So that has been a challenge to keep up with all the literature that's coming out. You have white papers that are coming out like crazy. You have issues in terms of everyone knows with the PPE and with test kits. That was an issue early on, but the community around Watts has rallied and has supported us in being able to get the equipment that we need to be safe while we're seeing patients face to face. And so I'm fortunate from that perspective. But for our patients, I'm connected to WHAM because of my personal journey with caring for my mom who had Alzheimer's, my grandmother who also had dementia. So it runs in my family. And so it's a personal battle for me. I've seen many patients among African Americans in particular, since we are disproportionately represented among those who have Alzheimer's, and women, Black women in particular. So what I'm noticing in this COVID environment is that my seniors are not adjusting well. They're very scared, like everyone else, but
Yeah.
they're particularly scared, so they won't access services that are needed. So
Like what?
we are.
What won't they access?
So like coming into the clinic to get tested, to get their blood work, or to get imaging if we make a recommendation for a care plan, or to go pick up their medications, or to go to a specialist office for continued care if they're in the middle of treatment. I have a cancer patient who is adamant that there are too many people in the waiting room of the specialist office, and he refuses to go there. And so they're very scared. There's a lot of confusion. Because, you know, the days are running into each other, and you can't really, you know, have a sense of time. So a lot of sundowning, and the sleep is thrown off and all that. So I'm noticing that. But it's an opportunity to be able to do something wonderful with those things. And I like to look at the glass half full. So the wonderful things that have come out of COVID, because I'm sure you don't hear that a lot.
Yeah.
The wonderful
No, you
things
don't.
of COVID.
Yeah.
The wonderful things of COVID for me is that putting the power in the hands of the patient and the families
Yeah.
to be more in partnership with their clinician, with their primary care doctor or their provider. We are doing more orders for durable medical equipment, which includes things like blood pressure cuffs and glucometers for our diabetics, pulse oximetry for those who have lung diseases. And that allows the patient to be able to measure, you know, and get data for themselves at home, so that we can have a better care plan development as a result of having real data. Because when you can't touch the patient and bring them in, you're limited and you only have the history. But it's great
So
that they're able to
families are having to step up, as you say, in so many ways, right? So I want to come back to what you were saying, that, you know, Alzheimer's disproportionately impacts women and women of color. You talked about your mom, you talked about your grandma. How do we get this message out into the African-American community better than we have been doing? I mean, we talk a lot at WAM about women, African-American women, Latina women, but so often we're up against kind of cultural norms, you know, particularly like in the Latina community. People say, well, we don't do that. In this, we don't want to bring somebody, you know, into a home. We take care of people at home. We don't get these kinds of checkups. We're not aware of the link, perhaps, between hypertension and Alzheimer's. Nobody ever speaks to us when we go to the doctor, when we're in our 50s and 60s, about the link. How can we do a better job connecting the dots for your community?
Within the African American community, it's been a storied history as far as the relationship between African Americans and healthcare community. When you look back in terms of slavery times, the slave owner, the plantation owner's relationship with the doctor was actually more important than the doctor's relationship with the patient. So to continue the workforce, you know, to get out there and to do, you know, what needed to be done on the plantation, you have a scenario where the doctor would side more so on making decisions that would benefit the plantation owner rather than the property of that plantation owner.
Wow.
And so when you have a history like that, and so many other more egregious atrocities that, you know, we don't even need to go into here unless you want to go there, that is a setup for people to have distrust of a system. And what we're seeing now with the civil unrest and police brutality and all that, it all connects back to healthcare and the significance of racism as a social construct that has impacted the delivery of healthcare. And has contributed to the disproportionate representation of African Americans as having worse outcomes across the board. So in terms of getting that connection to be able to get the message out to the community, you have to go and partner with those spaces that are trustworthy in the community. Churches, you know, the church community would be an example of that. And community groups, sororities and fraternities, you know, the places where we thrive and where we trust, you know, the messages that are coming, you know, forth from those different spaces. Those would be the ideal arenas for partnering. But we also have to, you know, kind of own the culpability of the systemic or structural, inadequacies of the system that have contributed to what we're seeing, so that as African Americans, we can see they really do care. They hear us. They know they're not just blaming the victim, but that we really do get it, as a society.
I was listening, really well said, by the way, and I was doing a big task force meeting for the governor because I'm running this task force on Alzheimer's prevention and preparedness, and we were in Fresno virtually the day before yesterday, and there was a lot of talk about the power of the churches to dispense this information, to educate so many women, African American women, end up as our caregivers. 2/3 of all the caregivers are always women, but African American women, without the education of how to be a caregiver. You just talked about so many of the things that you're having to, families are having to do. And I heard it also, I heard a cop yesterday say, I want to reach out to my African American brothers and sisters and say, join me in being a police officer. Come in and join the ranks here. Do you make an appeal to women who look like you to come into the healthcare, which is a place that's actually one of the few areas that's actually hiring and needs people? Because we have here in the state of California where we don't have enough doctors. We don't have enough geriatric psychiatrists. We don't have enough of social workers. We don't have enough of anything, much less we don't have enough people who look like you working in the community of people who could see you.
Right. I'm actually a part of and am president-elect for Association of Black Women Physicians. And an important work that we do within that organization is generational work, doing mentoring through Sister to Sister, where we actually follow young women through that pre-med, med school, and postgraduate work to give them the support that they need to know how to study, to get funding. We do scholarship fundraisers. We have a fundraiser coming up this year. We do it annually, and all the proceeds go towards young women and, planting that seed for the future.
What's the name of that?
The Association of Black Women Physicians, ABWP. And I'll make sure to send you a link and even some information about the upcoming event in October here.
Great, so people can contribute to that, because that you're raising up the next generation of doctors, right?
Exactly. Proudly.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, sweetie.
No, I was just saying, yes, there's people saying that they actually know about this mentoring program. So that's wonderful. For those of you who don't know about it, we're going to get the information and share it with you in the WHAM Weekly and put it up on here so people can support it, donate to it, become aware of it, and or join it, and all of the above, as they say.
All of the above.
All of the above. So let me ask you, kind of, are you seeing with kind of people who are getting COVID, do you also see them having many other healthcare conditions, one of which might be Alzheimer's?
Definitely. So when we see, early on, the messaging made it seem as if we would get a pass on getting hit by the pandemic, as in terms of the African American community, because we thought it was something that was for affluent people or people who traveled, abroad, and that was it did a disservice to those people who were actually the most vulnerable. And I knew that if it hit our community because of the poor baseline health, that it would spread like wildfire, and that's exactly what we saw. So I would say, for us, we have to address those things that were there before COVID. COVID didn't cause things to happen. It actually accelerated things that were already in progress. So we already had poor baseline health in our community. And so what we are seeing is a huge example in real time, in rapid time, of something that has been going on for decades, within the community, in terms of diabetes and renal disease and dialysis, cardiovascular disease, more aggressive cancer presentations, and the like. These things are not new. COVID-19 has just allowed America to be able to see and to be able to connect and have that aha moment finally,
Yeah.
at what has been going on as an epidemic within our community.
When you say that has allowed America to have an aha moment, have there been aha moments within the families that you treat?
Very much so. I think, you know, when we got past the fact that we weren't going to get that pass, and that, yes, you know, all ages are vulnerable, you
Yes.
know, even though they kept mentioning about, you know, above age 65, and, you know, people with chronic conditions and people who travel, you know, to certain hotspots. At the end of the day, where the context of health is very important. The context of where you live is important. I think my patients, as well as the global community, you know, around us, we've been aware on the public health side,
Yeah.
but I think the layperson is becoming more aware of the context in which you live, play, work, and age is the most significant impacting thing on brain health and on overall health.
So what do we
If
do
you have
about that? That kind of hasn't been a part of these protests, but it is a big part of, you know, we've been talking about police reform, systemic racism, and you hear a little bit about health disparity in there, right? But it's not really front and center. And health disparity has so much to do with how you age and whether you get to age at all, right? So how does that part of how does we elevate that part of the conversation?
I think this is an important moment. For me, I'm very excited, even though I don't like seeing the looting, and I don't like seeing destruction of people's property and hard work and livelihood and generational wealth gone up in flames in some places. I'm not ever going to say that I stand in agreement with that type of protest.
Yeah.
But I understand the root of it. I understand where it comes from. So I won't badger the people about it. But what I do feel is that this is an opportunity for us to elevate the conversation in terms of racism as a public health emergency. And to talk about health equity, because having access to health care, having a health insurance card does not guarantee good health for an individual.
Can you repeat that, doctor? Can you repeat that? This is a moment to look at racism as health disparity?
Yes, to look at the impact, because racism is a social determinant of health. Just like having a poor built environment or food insecurity, joblessness, you know, all of those things are, you know, commonly known social determinants of health. So that's the context in which a person lives.
Right.
So your physical environment plays a huge role in your health outcome. Chronic stress plays a huge role in that outcome. So when you're talking about health equity takes you away from health equality, because I may have a card, but I may not have equity.
Yeah.
Right? So with equity, we're saying that all lives matter. We're saying that all lives are valuable. And so when you're thinking about allocation of resources, you don't allocate it equally, you allocate it according to need. And if there's a population that has a greater need than another population, it's nothing against the other population. You're healthier. You're in a better space. We need to look at this group over here, because if they die, we as a whole society are going to be impacted by that loss. Yeah, and so that's what real health justice.
I love that, real health justice, and bringing this into the conversation. Kind of, you know, it also bringing brain health into the health justice part. It's so challenging, right? It's so, when I talk about brain health, everybody looks at me like I'm like, what? You know, and just kind of finally, what are you finding? Are you finding people open to brain health, or are you having to really sit down and say, look, you know, you've got a brain in here. There are things you can do in terms of how you eat, how you live, how you move, how you sleep that affect it.
You know, I think as a country, we were moving, we've moved together into the holistic space, and things that we used to look at in the medical community as hooky have had rigorous randomized trials and things to validate it. Yeah. So when you have someone, say, for example, with chronic pain, we know that sending them to an acupuncturist could be a benefit. We know that someone with high blood pressure that engages in meditation, and we train them and show them how to do breath work, that they can benefit and lower their cardiovascular disease risk as a result of just that one simple activity. And African Americans are, engaging in these things all over the country, on social media platforms as well as in person. And that is why I'm excited about the opportunity to be able to impact brain health earlier on, because we lose that preclinical stage opportunity to be able to stave off the progression or development of Alzheimer's in particular, because we are unable to identify those patients because they're asymptomatic. They don't have symptoms. They're not even aware that the process has begun, and that's in their 20s. And so brain health, and doing things like your diet, eating more fish and antioxidants and berries and nuts. You got to think about health not just from the neck down, but from the neck up. The totality of the person is important.
And it's also changing generations. Just like we're having this larger conversation about changing generational beliefs, changing systemic racism, changing healthcare disparities. We have to change the way we ate and have eaten, change the way we're working, how we're sitting. I grew up eating, I don't even want to say what I was eating.
Me neither. I'm with you. I'm from Buffalo, New York. We like chicken wings. So.
Okay, right. So we're all having to unlearn. And that's part of the larger conversation, right, too.
Yes.
We're all having to unlearn in our own way. And so I want to thank you. I know you're at work in the thick of it. And I want to thank you so much for being on the WHAM Advisory Council, for working with us to spread the message about brain health, to spread the message about how this disease disproportionately impacts women, particularly women of color and Latino women who are even more vulnerable, and how we can bring that message far and wide and get it to land in our families across this country.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your work. You are an inspiration. I want to say one thing. My daughter went to your daughter's school, Archer, and she just graduated this past weekend. Yes. So she got into Yale, and she's going to leave us. Yes, she's leaving us.
That just gave me goosebumps.
I know. She turned down Harvard, dear. She turned it down.
Oh, excuse me. Well. There you go. Well, congratulations are in order, Mama. There you go.
Thank you.
That's a big thing. Oh, that gave me goosebumps. Wow. We'll keep our eyes on her, and we'll keep connected to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, it says love you, Mom. Maybe that's your daughter.
Yes. Thank you.
Bravo,
take care. Thank you. Thank you for your work. All righty. Bye.
I love that. Yeah. Oh, great. Oh my God, that just makes me cry. Actually, Dr. Cozzette's daughter got into Yale. Wow, that's so much work. Anyway, yes, Sandy Gleistein, who works there, also went to Yale. And gosh, it's hard to get into any college. So God bless, congratulations. But with a mom like that, you have a role model in your own home. So never forget, that's one of the things that Devon Franklin said to me at the beginning of this week. Be a leader in your own home. Lead yourself forward, and other people will follow the way you lead yourself. And that, at the end of the day, you're leading as a parent, you're leading as a sibling, and wow, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today, for listening to Dr. Cozzette Lyons-Jones, who is in the thick of it on the front lines of humanity. We're really blessed with doctors like her who serve like her, and then want to serve the next generation and want to help the next generation. That's what we're all here to do. Be of service, pass it on, pay it forward. So I'm glad many of you say that you found it informative and helpful. You're right, Karen Ward. Dr. Cozzette is awesome. Capital AWESOME, all caps. She's an all cap woman. There you go. And may we, as we hear so much about, as we hear so much in the coming days about, police reform, systemic racism, and unlearning. Let's not forget about health disparities and how we can all be mindful of that and work to change that as well. All right, thank you all, and check out the Women's Alzheimer's Movement and the extraordinary work that we do day in, day out. God bless you.